Hello, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you are new. I'm Julianne and this is my quest to reach TBR 0. In other words, to read all of the books that I have unread on my physical shelves. In today's video, I'm going to be telling you about the rules for my project, doing a little recap for those of you who are new or have just forgotten them all like I did at various points in the history of this project, and also tell you about the rule change that I am putting into place for the next stage. So I have now read 4 lots of 50 books. That is 200 for you maths fans out there. And every 50 books I have the option to change my rules. That is one of the rules that I set at the very beginning of this project, because I knew I'd be in it for the long run, right? I knew that I wouldn't necessarily want to keep the same rules the whole way through, and so far this has paid off for me really, really well. So yeah, this is month 34. I did my first rule change in month 10. Yes, it took me a whole 9 months to read the first 50 books, and at that point I had forgotten basically all of the rules that I had originally set. I went back just now and watched that original video in which I explain all of the rules, and they are really, really vague. They are so vague. I can completely understand why month 10 me had completely forgotten all of them. Basically, it was things like, I'm going to continue this project until I have only got 30 unread books left, or I otherwise decide that I am done with this process and I've learnt all that it is that I am going to learn from it, which, fair, that one's fair. I feel like that one still stands. 30 books sounds like a sensible number to me. There's part of me that wants to get to absolute 0, but 30, you know, if I get to 30 and I feel like that's where I want to stop, fair enough. Not having a book buying ban yet. I've never had a book buying ban because book buying is not actually my problem. I only generally buy 1 or 2 books a month, and even charity shops I've gotten really good at resisting. My problem is books that I get for free, that I'm passed on by fellow book people or that I find in little free libraries and other street libraries and things like that. I live in London, there are a lot of those, and so yeah, that is my biggest weakness. I have got better at resisting them. If I see a book and I think, oh, that sounds interesting, but like I'm not 100% sure that I want to read that, I would just leave it, because I'm sure I will come across it again. If it's a book that's really common, like really popular, then I know it'll be at the library and I don't need to pick up the physical copy. It's usually only the stuff that's like a little bit more obscure or that I'm really, really excited to find that I will pick up. Another thing I did in that first set of rules is I banned myself from NetGalley. I abandoned this rule. I let myself use NetGalley during the last 2 lots of 50 books. Although my NetGalley use has naturally really slowed down because my e-reader is a Nook Simple Touch, which is not supported by the current version of NetGalley. They want you to have a Kindle or a Kobo basically, and yeah, I do not have those. I would love to buy myself a really, really nice, fancy, like top of the range Kobo. I think that's going to be my reward once I finish the whole of TBR 0. But until then, I'm going to stick for as long as my Nook Simple Touch holds out with my Nook Simple Touch, because it still does the job. It's a bit decrepit looking, but it works. I don't read that many ebooks anyway because I have this enormous TBR. And I also have a really local library that I could walk to. In fact, I have 2 or 3 libraries within what I would consider walking distance. So it's like absolutely no, oh, 4, I just thought of another one. So there we go. I am well stocked for public libraries, so my need for ebooks is minimal. So I currently have no reason to be getting a new e-reader, and therefore that mainly keeps me off NetGalley. I did get a couple of books sent to me in EPUB or PDF from publishers last year, and they were books I was really, really excited about, so I just couldn't resist. But generally that has meant that ebooks and ebook acquisition for me has come to a complete stop. There is the option to get audiobooks for NetGalley, but there aren't very many on there, and frankly I feel like it's just better for me to not look. So I'm sort of on a NetGalley ban. In fact, you know what? I'm going to say I am on a NetGalley ban because I want to finish this current 50 books, the one I'm just starting here with this rule change, before the end of the year. And it's usually only at the end of the year that I really want to borrow things on NetGalley, because I want Christmas books and I want the latest Christmas books, so I'm on there looking for them. So there we go. Incentive to get this 50 books done before Christmas so that I can undo that rule at least for the Christmas period. Also, I mentioned series books in that first video. And this wasn't really a rule, this was just me waffling on about the books I have on my TBR, which are part of the series, and what I'm going to do about reading the later ones in the series. The answer is borrow them from the library. It's borrow them from the library, and sometimes they're not at the library, in which case I'm just going to buy them. I'm not going to worry about this, you know, like if it lets me physically get rid of the book, like if I'm holding on to the first one because I haven't got the second one, and there's a danger that if I leave it too long, then I'll have to reread the first one. I don't want that. I'd rather just buy the second one, get it over and done with, and then all of them can move out of my house. There we go, yeah. A weekly schedule. So in that first video, I was like, I want to read for at least an hour every single day that I am working from home. I'm going to have a chart and tick it off. I'd completely forgotten that I'd ever done this. And it is completely, well, it's not really relevant to my current stage of life because I'm on a career break at the moment. I don't have a job, but I still need to prioritise reading. So what I've decided is every week I'm going to have like 4 hours of solid reading I want to do. This is also just to treat myself during this career break because it's something I really want to do. I don't often get a long period of reading, and I would really like to have like a solid 4 hours just sitting on the sofa with a book or lying on the bed with a book each week. And so that is what I'm going to do from now on for at least the duration of the career break. And I'm hoping I will get the next 50 books done within the career break. If I have a job and I'm still doing this 50 books, then what was I doing with all my time? For one. And for two, probably writing, to be honest. Like over the last few weeks, I've done like quite a lot of like writing workshops and writing exercises that I have accumulated and kind of not caught up with. I've still got some more recordings of things from like the Arvon Foundation and Dyslexia that I haven't watched. So yeah, it's going to be competing with writing, but I'm like, if I just have like a 4-hour slot every week, and if I really have to, I can split it up into 2-hour blocks. I really don't want to do that. I really just want 4 hours, maybe lunch in the middle, but 4 hours of reading. Yeah, that's my plan. And then if I have a job before the end of this 50 books, we'll revisit that rule and see where we are. But that's what we're going to do. Dedicated reading time, 4 hours a week. Yes, I will read more than that because I read like a little bit kind of as I'm going about my life when I'm eating and stuff. But yeah, solid 4-hour blocks. That's what my goal is. That's what I'm aiming for. I'm not going to call that a rule. That's more of just like a lifestyle choice that I'm hoping to make here. Audiobooks. I spoke about audiobooks. At the time, definitely the time of my rule change in month 10, I was trying to get through Audible's Plus catalogue. Basically, I signed up for Audible on a free trial and then got sucked in to the Plus catalogue and all of the stuff that you can sort of unlimited listen to there, and it took me so long to get off of it. Never again, that's all I can say. Like, they keep emailing me with their offers, you know, have another month free trial, 3 months for 99p, no Audible, I'm wise to your tricks, I'm not going there. Maybe when TBR 0 is done I might do another free trial, but no, I'm not getting sucked in for the long haul. Not into that Amazon thing, trying to minimize my use of it. So yeah, I will probably go with Libro FM or Zigzag or something as an audiobook provider instead. Yeah, there we go. And so yeah, audiobooks, they're all reward books now, which brings me on to the main rule. The rule that I introduced in month 10 is like my guiding light. So in month 10, I announced that all those other rules that I had mentioned, I described at the start of the project, I had completely forgotten about, and I decided to simplify it and just have one rule. And this one rule at the time, in month 10, I introduced for the second 50 books of the project, was that for every one book that I read of my TBR, I would get to read one that wasn't for my TBR as a reward. So in other words, I had to earn all of my reading of books from the library, from NetGalley, etc, etc, Audible books that were bought with a credit, by reading a book for my TBR. And that's what I did for that first time that I instituted this rule. For the second 50 books of the project, I did a ratio of 1:1. Then when I got to month 21, I decided this was not going fast enough, and I decided to challenge myself to make it a 2:1 ratio. And it was really funny watching that video back because I was so so nervous about this rule change. I was like, I don't know if this is going to work. I'm really nervous about it. I think it's going to be really difficult. And actually, it was amazing. And it was so amazing that I didn't change any rules for the third 50 books. So, no, wait, that was the third 50 books. This is really confusing me. So we got that first 50 books where I had all those vague rules that I then forgot. The second 50 books where it was the 1 for 1. The third 50 books where it was 2 for 1, and then the fourth 50 books, which is the one I've just finished with, was also 2 for 1 because I just decided I was happy with that rule and I wasn't going to change it, and I carried on. Now here we are, month 34. 764 books left. Now I've finally done the count. I must have started this project with over 1,000 because although I have acquired some books over the course of the project, I have been reading a pretty high rate. So I think things have been pretty stable for a while, and there hasn't been a point where I've like acquired an enormous amount to counter out several months worth. There have been months where I've like almost broken even or like just about broken even. I think there've been a couple of months where I did acquire more than I've read, but overall I am reading more than I acquire. So I'm pretty sure I must have had about 1,000 books when I started, or like, yeah, something in that ballpark. Looking at like the pace of what I've been reading, how many books I read off my TBR, I think about 1,000, but I didn't count until more recently. So yeah, 764 books now. It's month 34. I did the maths and I worked out that it's going to take me at least 4 more years to finish this project at this rate, and I'm like, nah. And also I like a challenge. This whole project was about challenging myself, really. And that 2 for 1, I remember when I was announcing the ratio change, and although I was really nervous, I was also really excited about it. I was excited about the idea of getting through my PBR faster, about all the books I was going to get to read, and about the challenge of it all, really. And so I thought, let's make it 3 for 1. Why not? In for a penny, in for £3. So that is my rule change. Banned from NetGalley. Audiobooks are all rule books now, which has kind of been the case for a while since I dropped Audible, but I thought I'd reiterate it here for the benefit of those who are new. No book buying ban. Still aiming for 30 or somewhere between 30 and 0. Other thing I should mention is that kind of reference books don't count, like craft books don't count. Things where you wouldn't sit there and like read them cover to cover don't count as TBR books. Non-fiction does though, for the most part. It's just those sort of like practical books like cookbooks and stuff that I wouldn't sit there and read cover to cover. So yeah, I don't count them as TBR. Aiming for 4 hours of like proper solid reading time a week, ideally in one session. And then yeah, the 3 to 1. So there we go. Please let me know in the comments what you think of these rules. If you are doing a TBR 0 project and you set yourself some rules at the start, what are you thinking about them at this point? Do you have a system where you can change up your rules as you go around? I feel like that is the biggest strength I've had with this project and the reason why I've stuck with it for so long. You know, many people start TBR 0 and they crash and burn. A lot of them, it's because they set themselves like a challenge to do it all in 1 year, and they massively underestimated how long it would take them to read their books. And also that they were really strict, you know. I feel like putting yourself on a book buying ban is great if you can stick to it, but for most people they can't stick to it. There's just too much temptation out there, and it doesn't solve the problem alone, because if you have a book buying ban in place but you still let people give you books as presents, you can still use the library, then you're always still going to have that new and shiny object syndrome distracting you from your TBR. I also don't think like setting a hard limit is necessarily going to work for most people either. Having that whole I'm going to do it within a year is just really, really restrictive, and it doesn't allow for the ups and downs of life, what else might be going on. You know, you get really into a TV show, you have to deal with a really difficult situation at work and work extra hours, childcare, pets, family dramas, you name it. There are so many things that come along that you would have to spend your time on that take you away from that goal of reading all of your books by the end of a year. And also I think a lot of people overestimate how fast they read as well. They're just setting themselves like a wishful thinking target. And I feel like it's really great to be ambitious, but at the same time you have to be kind to yourself whilst you're doing it. And it's good to set goals which make you excited, but not goals that you're just gonna feel bad about, you know. You don't want to get to 6 months in and be like, oh, there's no way I'm going to complete this, because you'll abandon the project then, or you'll just be sort of going through the motions because you know you're not going to complete it. You want to set rules that you get 6 months in and you're like, yeah, I can do this, I'm going to keep on going, you know. And so that's why I recommend indefinite end date for your TBR 0. And yeah, not doing a book buying ban. I feel like you can do a short-term book buying ban. Like a lot of people do like a book buying ban for like the first few months of the year each year. Or you do like, there used to be this blog-based reading challenge where it was like, oh God, it was like the TBR Double Dog Dare, I think it was called. And basically it was like until the 1st of March you couldn't read any new books that you acquired. So if you bought new books you weren't allowed to read them until after that point. So you had to like spend that first couple of months of the year just focusing on your TBR. And that I feel worked. I did do it a couple of times because you didn't have that indefinite period or like a long period like a year. It was just a couple of months where you couldn't read the books, and it also wasn't a ban of buying them, it was just a ban on you actually being able to read them. So yeah, I think I've probably said this before, but I encourage you to experiment, and before you commit to a TBR 0 project, try out some rules. I actually tested out the 1-to-1 ratio before I did it. I was reminded of this when I went back and watched that month 21 video. I had to check my notes there to remind myself which month it was in. But yeah, in that video I mentioned that I tested it out on the last few books to make sure that I can make it work. And so I was going into it feeling pretty confident about it, which is how I feel we should feel, you know. Like maybe set yourself some sub rules for a week if you're already doing a TBR 0 project, or before you announce it to the world if you haven't kind of started yet. Just do a couple of weeks or a month testing out your rules and seeing how they fit around you and your life, and whether you find them motivating or demoralizing, you know. At the end of the day, reading is supposed to be fun, and you shouldn't do a TBR 0 project if it's just going to be torture. You should only be doing it if it really fires you up and makes you feel good. And I can honestly say that my project makes me feel great. 200 books in, 764 to go. There we go. That is the status of my project and my rules at the moment. Thank you so much for watching. Please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you'd like to hear more from me, and let me know in the comments any thoughts that you have about my rules, TBR 0 in general, books in general. I will read and respond to them all. Thank you again. Bye.